Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Brazos Valley, UUCBV, or Brazos UU for short. My name is Pam Johnson, and I am serving as your worship assistant today. We are a welcoming congregation, which means we celebrate and welcome all people of diverse sexual orientations and gender identities. We also strive to welcome people across diversities of race, age, ability, immigration status, and belief. We are also a congregation working for reproductive justice. So whoever you are, wherever you have come from, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here.
Now is the accepted time, not tomorrow, not some more convenient season. It is today that our best work can be done, and not some future day or future year. It is today that we fit ourselves for the greater usefulness of tomorrow. Today is the seed time. Now are the hours of work, and tomorrow comes the harvest and the playtime. W.E.B. Du Bois.
Please say our chalice lighting words with me. We light the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, as a beacon of hope for all who seek justice, dignity, and compassion, and in celebration of the life of truth and meaning we share together. Now, all please join me in saying our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fasts. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Our Time for All Ages today is about a very special individual to the history of Texas, the Brazos Valley, and Texas A&M University. Some of you may even work for or have grown-ups who work for the university. It's a pretty important place in our community. Our story is also a reminder that Black history is American history, and we celebrate and acknowledge Black Americans throughout the year, but especially in February. Today, we're learning about Matthew Gaines. Matthew Gaines was born on August 4th, 1840, and was enslaved on a plantation in Pineville, Louisiana. He learned to read as a young child from books that were smuggled to him by a boy who lived on the same plantation. It was against the law for Matthew to learn how to read. Matthew escaped the plantation twice, but slave catchers returned him to his owner's plantation both times. After the Civil War, slavery was abolished and there was more opportunity for formerly enslaved people. Matthew moved to Texas. In Burton, which is in Washington County, Matthew Gaines established himself as a leader of the Black community, both as a Baptist minister and as a politician. He passionately supported the movement that established the first public school system for all Texans. I wonder if you have an idea about why Mr. Gaines might support education throughout his life. Okay, back to our story. Matthew Gaines was the first Black state senator from Washington County. He worked hard during the 12th Texas legislature and is well known for his support of the Land Grant College Act of 1862, which is also known as the Morrill Act, and it created the Agricultural and Mechanical College of Texas, which is now Texas A&M. This act provided opportunities to thousands of farmers and working people who were previously excluded from higher education. However, Texas A&M would not accept Black students until 1963, and it still lags behind other state universities in terms of the numbers of Black students and faculty. Today, there are many, many people working to make Texas A&M recognize its Black history and the issues facing its Black students. One example of this work is that a statue of Matthew Gaines was recently built on Texas A&M University's campus. I wonder if you've seen it. The sculpture shows Mr. Gaines climbing some steps. He carries a stack of books under his left arm and holds his right hand out as if to help the viewer climb the stairs with him. The statue was dedicated in November 2021, and nearly 1,000 people were at the statue's unveiling. The statue is the product of a nearly 3-decade effort to memorialize Matthew Gaines. Students, faculty, and staff began working to recognize Gaines's contributions starting in the 1990s. Support fluctuated over time, but the momentum changed after the civil unrest and protests in response to the death of George Floyd in 2020. The Matthew Gaines Society was instrumental in raising awareness and the $350,000 needed to build the statue. For many, the Matthew Gaines statue symbolizes a large step toward recognizing the many Black individuals who contributed to the university's history. In attendance was Mason Alexander Hawk, class of 2024, Gaines's great-great-great-granddaughter and member of the Matthew Gaines Society. She was one of more than 50 descendants in attendance. That's pretty cool. Matthew Gaines passed away in 1900, but his legacy continues in the Brazos Valley today. In addition to Texas A&M's campus, one of the places you can learn about Mr. Gaines and Black history of our area is the Brazos Valley African American Museum. This month, in honor of Black History Month, admission to the museum is free. Consider taking a trip and taking the time to learn about our history here in Bryan College Station. Have a great week.
As long as racism exists to ruin the lives of countless people of color, it should be something that upsets us. But it upsets us because it exists, not because we talk about it. And if you are white and don't want to feel any of that pain by having these conversations, then you are asking people of color to continue to bear the entire burden of racism alone. Ijoma Oluo. So you want to talk about race.
Black Lives Matter is a continuation of the Black liberation struggle that started in 1619. Statistics like these make it very clear that something is seriously wrong. And there is an imbalance, a disconnect. And it's just harder to be Black in America.
In Sanford, Florida, on February 26, 2012, Trayvon Martin was murdered by George Zimmerman, and subsequently, George Zimmerman was acquitted for the murder. Black Lives Matter started with a tweet. Alicia Garza wrote a tweet after the death that said, "Black people, I love you. I love us. Our lives matter."
Black Lives Matter.
In 2013, 3 radical Black women organizers, Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tometi, created what they called a Black-centered political will and movement building project called #Black Lives Matter. This was done in response to the acquittal of George Zimmerman, and then they started this whole social media campaign of hoodies. Maybe you put your hoodie on and had your Facebook picture taken, and they took to the streets to demonstrate and raise awareness about inequities in the justice system and the fact that people get away with killing Black people. The project now is a global network of over 40 chapters. Members organize and build local power, intervene in violence inflicted on Black communities by the state, and vigilantes. Black Lives Matter is an ideological and political intervention in a world where Black lives are systematically and intentionally targeted for demise. It is an affirmation of Black folks' humanity, our contributions to this society, and our resilience in the face of deadly oppression. They say, as organizers, we work with everyday people. Black Lives Matter members see and understand significant gaps in movement spaces and leadership. Black liberation movements in this country have created room, space, and leadership, mostly for Black, heterosexual, cisgendered men, leaving women, queer, and transgender people and others either out of the movement or in the background to move the work forward with little or no recognition. As a network, we have always recognized the need to center the leadership of women and queer and trans people, to maximize our movement muscle, and to be intentional about not replicating harmful practices that excluded so many in the past movements for liberation. We made a commitment by placing those at the margins closer to the center. As Black Lives Matter developed through 2013 and 2014, we utilized it as a platform. They created a set of demands and used a hashtag and used social media to organize demonstrations and to raise awareness of the problems. People started wearing hoodies. People started talking about Black Lives Matter. This continued in July of 2014 with the death of Eric Garner, where people were, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. People saw the video of the policeman choking him, and you could hear him calling out. On August 9th in 2014, Michael Brown, an unarmed teenager, was shot by a policeman in Ferguson, Missouri. The policeman in Ferguson used tear gas and rubber bullets, tanks, and full body armor to subdue the mostly peaceful protesters. These images went nationwide and worldwide, and Black Lives Matter became a movement. All 3 of the founders were born in the early 80s. They're in their in late 30s and 40s, 3 Black women organized the whole thing. They had a lot of experience with organizing, and they're very clear. If you go to blacklivesmatter.com, you can see the actual things that they are advocating for. Often they get lumped, Black Lives Matter and Antifa. Antifa just means anti-fascist. Antifa doesn't have a centralized website. There's no place you can go and get all the information about Antifa. Black Lives Matter is anti-fascist and nonviolent. Antifa sometimes includes people who are willing to stand up to white supremacists and use violence to defend themselves. So Black Lives Matter is not necessarily like everyone in Antifa, but Black Lives Matter is Antifa. None of these people should be equally compared to the insurrectionists in January 6th. In Baltimore in 2015, the demonstrations became much more intense. Freddie Gray was killed in Baltimore, suddenly had a time cover, and LeBron James wearing an I Can't Breathe t-shirt, and people are talking about Black people being systematically murdered. The actual facts and figures start coming out. People are starting to pay attention. This is also about the time when the anti-Black Lives Matter starts up on Fox, where you have Bill O'Reilly calling Black Lives Matter, saying that they want to kill cops, and there's a backlash. They get called a hate group on Fox. Like Occupy, they want to model non-leader models where many people can speak and many people have leadership and all voices are heard. So while Black Lives Matter really wanted to hold police accountable, and they might talk about defunding the police, but defunding the military aspects of the police, they're not necessarily talking about getting rid of police altogether or being anti-police. It's not Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter. So organizing and having nonviolent demonstrations to raise awareness and to create momentum is not the same thing as having violent intentions or trying to overthrow the government. That's not what it is. So Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and Opal Tometi all have organizer backgrounds. Patrisse Cullors is a lesbian and an artist. Opal has a history of working in domestic violence counseling. She comes from a Nigerian immigrant family.
She has a long history of doing immigrant work as an activist. She's left Black Lives Matter, and she's co-written a book called Black Lives Matter at School, and she changed her name to Ayo. Alicia also left Black Lives Matter, and she's working with a group called the Black Futures Lab, which is kind of a think tank. Alicia got a divorce in 2021, and she is also an author. Her book is called The Purpose of Power: How We Come Together When We Fall Apart. Patrisse stayed in Black Lives Matter the longest. She took the organization through the expansion that happened, especially over the George Floyd demonstrations, with the organization raising almost $90 million and becoming international in its scope. She became the executive director and tried to change the structure. This created a lot of controversy with some of the grassroots and local branches, many disagreements, and lots of right-wing disinformation campaigns. She was accused of spending Black Lives Matter money on her own properties. She received a couple of lucrative, had a hit book and a movie deal, and bought properties that were incorrectly presented as being bought with Black Lives Matter money. So she stepped down last year as the executive director. So the organization at present does not have an executive director. And there are 5 states suing Black Lives Matter Global Foundation over their accounting. Although, so it looks worse than it might be. And really, this is all current and ongoing. Currently, the national organization is not accepting donations, but donating to the local networks is a good idea. Patrice says nobody really understands the role of a movement leader, especially when it's a Black woman or a woman in leadership. The level of vitriol we receive, the level of criticism, the level of expectation that we are supposed to be the mother for everybody. And that's from Black folks and non-Black people. This idea that we have to give and give and give and give until we can no longer give. Patrice spent some time in the hospital about a month after she let go of the executive directorship. The level of death threats and the level of stress from the disinformation campaign has definitely taken its toll. So all the founders have moved on and are doing what they're doing. They're doing their work. And the organization will continue. The grassroots organizations are continuing. The national organization and the international organization are thriving in some places. So what's going to happen next? We have no idea. So stay tuned.
We have to get clear on what we're fighting against. So Ibram X. Kendi, where how to be an anti-racist. And I really like that term because while there's systemic racism inherent in our culture, and individually we unconsciously participate in how we're raised or how we think about the world or how we were taught, but we can be anti-racist, we can be against that. And we can work to educate ourselves, and we can work to learn more, and we can support Black-owned businesses, and we can try to create equity with where we donate our money and where we volunteer our time. About what are we trying to tear up? Well, Bell Hooks says, imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. That's it in a nutshell. I'm against that. I bet you are too. And we can educate ourselves to be better allies and better co-conspirators by knowing what Black Lives Matter means and who started it and what they value, knowing what Antifa means and who's involved in it and what's happened historically. These are things that are going to help us in our conversations with other people and help us fight the disinformation campaign that is actively going on. So I hope that you dedicate yourself to being a co-conspirator and an ally and an accomplice. I hope you donate when you can. I hope you volunteer where you can. I hope you educate yourself and educate your friends. Be careful what you post. Make sure it's true. There's a CNN site where you can check and see if something's disinformation campaign. The Russians have actually put a lot of bad bots out there and information against Black Lives Matter and false postings and stuff. So don't trust something just because it said that. There was a foundation, the Black Lives Foundation, which New York State is suing because they have nothing to do with Black Lives Matter and they've raised millions of dollars, their handle. So make sure you're donating to the real people. I look forward to talking to you more about this.
tried to fit, we tried to bend, fix all our broken places, wishing we could mend. So we stand here with these scars, naked, and we trace our fingers lightly over yours. Where are our better angels, beautiful and wise? We pledge our first allegiance to the love that's in our eyes, in our eyes. After midnight, rage and fires light. Some are shaking with despair, so many dead and silent. Are we brave enough? Are we strong enough to listen and to care? Where are our better angels, beautiful and wise? We pledge our first allegiance to the love that's in our eyes, in our eyes. So much history, can we change it? For we know that time is running like a river through our hands. Tell the stories that must be told, make us whole, so we will rise, dream and breathe.
Now let an offering be taken to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. This church shares the proceeds of the offering plate donation every week to support important nonprofit organizations with which we work. This month, we are proud to support Tiny Hope Village, a nonprofit organization formed to provide a permanent housing solution for people who have experienced homelessness in the Bryan College Station, Hearn area. Please be as generous as you can. We give thanks for these gifts we have given, for those we receive, and for each other. May your generosity return to you tenfold.
Good morning. My name is Eleanor Ford. I, like most of you, have not been a lifelong UU. There are, in fact, only a handful in our congregation. It was almost exactly 14 years ago, in February 2008, that my husband and I signed the book. After retiring to Bryan in the summer of 2007, we saw an article in the Eagle written by Reverend Eric Poza, who at the time was the new minister of UUCBV. His article inspired a real interest, which resulted in our making regular visits and culminated in our signing the book. My husband, raised Catholic, and I, raised Methodist, remained unchurched during our entire marriage until moving to Bryan and finding the UU Church. Our 4 children were raised unchurched and, if I may say so, are the most moral, ethical, and generous adults that I can imagine. After becoming aware of UUism, we felt it to be a perfect fit to express our spirituality. And it felt so good to be in a community with liberal-minded and like-minded people, which provided a true oasis, which we thought didn't exist. My husband passed away in August 2013 at the beginning of Reverend Sam Shaw's ministry. I couldn't have asked for a greater outpouring of love and support from the congregation and the minister. During my 14 years of membership, I've experienced the ministerial leadership of 5 ministers, and now the 6th under the leadership of Pastor Kiya, as we eagerly look forward to an entirely new era in our church's history. As we are aware, our church has had many setbacks during the last 5 years, beginning with TxDOT's purchase of our property on Welborn Road by eminent domain. We were fortunately able to immediately move into rented space at the Hillel Student Center until the COVID pandemic forced us to go virtual, until we more recently went back to in-person at the Neal Recreation Center, until COVID variants raised their ugly heads, forcing us back to virtual. During all the 5 years since losing our building on Welborn, we were looking for property that was suitable and affordable, followed by choosing an architect, followed by choosing a general contractor. After having adequate funds from the sale of our church property, the architect designed everything first class, with many extras even. But when it finally came time to build, there was a dramatic increase in the cost of building materials and supplies, as well as shortages, forcing some great compromises in our original plans, which forced more delays made necessary by having to redesign. As a member of the Sacred Space team, I have participated in all of these phases. Now, as construction is underway and progressing, and with fewer members now than in the past 5 years, we need to be as generous as we can be in making our pledges for 2022-23 in order to grow this beautiful oasis so that we can more effectively reach out to the community as a strong beacon. After all, we are the only show in town and in the Brazos Valley. Thank you.
Now please join me in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we gather together again.
Dear God, thank you for leading me down this path. I'm thankful for the man that I am. At first, I didn't understand. Now I see the tribulations that I faced were all part of the plan. I tried to walk away, I wasn't whole. You fill the gap inside my heart and let me know I had a soul. I was bleeding on the inside, nobody could see. Then I looked into the mirror, he was staring back at me. Now I gotta say, I was lost, where'd I go? Now I'm here, glory road, child of God, not a sheep. Lost my way, came on home. Used to think the world was cold and I was fighting all alone until I made that call and heard his voice and touch right through that phone. All my pain, all my stress, added to the dumb neglect. I used to take my burdens and disperse them around to all my friends. Anger and frustration was a means, but never to an end until you picked me up and took that weight right up off my chest. A child of God, nothing more, nothing less. Born sinner, not by choice, but also born blessed. I could feel the pressure building up and choking at my neck. Then God told me take a breath and he would handle all the rest. I'm not a stranger to evil. I've done wrong to people. I've told lies, but in his eyes I am still equal. My words weaponized, bars save lives, they lethal and take off in the sky, spread wings like eagles. My life's an open book, something for the world to see. People watching what I do, so I'm careful of words I speak. Came up as a child, I never thought this was what I'd be, but now that it's my path, I swear to God that I won't fail to lead. Speaking positivity with every single breath I breathe. Looking up to God, I'm on my hands and down on my knees, asking him to grant me in the strength in this world. Agreed to be the person that will have a shoulder when they need to lean. Promises I made to you, God, yes I will keep. May not be who they want, but I'm making what they need. Rose from the dirt in the middle of the concrete and bloomed to a tree to create and disperse seeds. Impact is what I bleed, won't fall for anything. I answer to God, I don't answer to no human being. I am not a slave, I am not the devil nor a fiend. I'm a child of God just like you, we on the same team. Grab my hand, stand up, I won't leave you. You need me just as much as I need you. Fight these battles with me, I promise that you will see through and stand tall over things beneath you. Child of God, he is I and you are him. To see God, we must first look within. Nowhere else, no place, no human, no race, just us and faith till we meet again. Stacks.